So that's your second transport decision. Now we go to the lower extremities. Expose and observe for decap BLS. I'm going to palpate for tick using offset pressure. Checking PMSCs bilaterally. Where do I check for the pulse?
On the
Pedal pulse. If you haven't checked yet, you got your two toes here. You got your big toe and your next toe here. The bone that goes down in between, follow it to about mid-foot, and then you're going to check for a pulse there. It's something that you have to practice. So check on yourself, knock on your neighbor's door tonight, and say, "Can I check your foot?"
Take your sock off.
Yeah, take your sock. And if they say, "Come on in," you got to worry about that. You're like, "Wait a minute." Motor, how do we check for motor? Wiggle your toes. Sensory, how do we check? Can you feel? But you got to do one at a time, because if I say, "Which toe am I touching?" and he says, "Big toe."
Okay, which one?
So, which toe am I touching? My big toe. Which toe am I touching? Don't be a jerk and pick this one. It's the one. It's my. I'm gonna flip you off with it. And then cap refill. All right. That's simple. Then up top, it's the same thing as lower extremities. Expose and observe for decap BLS. Palpate for tick using offset pressure. Humerus, radius ulna, bilaterally. Check PMSC pulse. Where am I going to check for a pulse? Radial pulse. Why is that called the radial pulse?
Because it's on the radius side.
Yep, on the radius side, which turns into the brachial pulse. You'll learn all that in anatomy. Check for a pulse. Motor, wiggle your fingers. Which finger am I touching? Which finger am I touching? And then cap refill. Right? The which finger am I touching can be used for cap refill as well to speed up the process. For backboarding, halfway through the course, we're going to have a backboarding race competition, which is crazy fun. And the prize is this fire extinguisher bottle, which is awesome. All right, my hand goes here. You guys want to come over this way so you can see it? Right hand goes on the patient's right shoulder. Left hand goes on the patient's right pelvis. I'm going to roll on the head person's count. The head person is still holding manual stabilization. My partner is holding the pelvis and controlling the legs. Head person's count 1, 2, 3. My partner is holding the pelvis and controlling the legs. Okay. At this point, don't let go of the shoulder, because if I let go, the shoulder is going to slump, has a tendency to slump, right? So I'm going to control that shoulder. I can let go of this hand because who's controlling the pelvis area? My partner. So now I got my left hand only. Expose and observe for decap BLS. I'm going to check for everything I checked on this side, the injuries. I'm going to palpate the thoracic, the lumbar, all the way to the coccyx, okay? And same thing, I'm checking for each disc. With this one, I'm checking for point tenderness, step off, and alignment. We're adding that. Down here, I'm checking for a wallet. It's not on the skill sheet, but it's a great time to check for any incontinence and decap BLS, since you're there. On the head person's count, I'm gonna lower the patient. 1, 2, 3. Is the patient centered onto the backboard? Nope. So we have to use a Z-track motion. What a Z-track motion is, we're concerned about the spinal column right here. My arm represents the spinal column. If I push the legs, what happens? If I push the body, what happens? So I have to move everything at once down and then up. The Z-track is a motion that you use to maintain spinal stability. So my partner is holding the legs, controlling the legs. I'm controlling the torso. My other partner is controlling the head. On the head person's count, 1, 2, 3, moving the patient down. And then now we're going to move the patient forward. 1, 2, 3, just like that. Now that he's centered, now we can start the backboarding process. You have 2 straps. One is typically longer than the other one. This one's about the same. You want to start with the top portion of it. You start with the head. There's typically a little bit of space right here that you can wiggle this through. The D-ring has to be to the patient's left. For CPR, we use the defib pads here and here. So if the D-ring is right here, we can't use the defib pad. So it's got to end up on this side, okay? From here, I'm going to tuck this in, and don't worry about it. This backboarding is on the video. It's going to end up right there, okay? On this side, I'm going to tuck this in. So when I tuck this in just like this, it's flat on the trapezius muscle right there, okay? This comes down like a seat belt to the pelvic area. That's where we want to anchor it. It's going to be tight against the pelvic area, so the straps have to go straight down in. The idea is to have the straps tight against the body, okay? And this part, you just got to work to get this in. Comes across like the seat belt. And if you've ever worn a motorcycle helmet, it goes in just like that. You grab one, it just loops in just like that, and it tightens, okay? So you want this snug but not tight yet so the patient can breathe, okay? You come down to the legs. I'm gonna be as efficient as possible. From here, I know I'm gonna go that way, so I'm gonna throw this that way, okay? Perfect. I'm gonna come across, go in, and don't worry about too much about the strapping. When you practice, I'll show you guys how to strap all this. The key point is it's gotta be tight against the pelvic area, tight against the trap. Here, I'm gonna strap this way, top of the foot, the arch of the foot. If I put this too high, what's gonna happen? Foot's gonna bend back, so for comfort, arch of the foot. It's gotta be symmetrical on both sides. This goes in, so I'm putting this in, so it looks exactly the same. If it's not the same, it's gonna shift one way or the other. This goes this way. Again, it's tight against the pelvis area here. Same way, motorcycle helmet. Tighten it. Make sure it's tight. Just like that. Here, there's Velcro on two sides, soft on one side. Where do you think the soft one goes? Towards the head. If I do one at a time, I might push the head. So I'm going to do both at the same time. Sandwich it, go straight down. This too, if I do this and pull, it's going to pull the head. Put the forehead down first and then lower it. If that makes sense. Okay. After this, I'm going to check PMSCs because I put the patient on a splint. And then I'm going to